into groups, is each one rejoicing in the part that is with them. And this is the danger, brothers and sisters. We don't have a holistic approach to our religion. We don't have a holistic approach to the Quran. We approach many people, and this is how the groups they form. They have an idea, they have a concept, and instead of subjecting their concept to the Quran and the Sunnah to see, does my concept agree with the revelation or not? Does my idea agree with the revelation or not? Does this fit in to the teaching and the seerah and the Sunnah of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam? No. What they do is here's my idea, now let me find some verse to justify it. Let me find some hadith to justify my idea. Can you see the difference? Because believe me, brothers and sisters, you come up with you can think of anything, and I will find a verse in the Quran or a hadith of the Prophet which I can twist it out of context to justify what I want to do. I mean, I can't think of a better example than this right now that's so relevant. That the madness that is taking place now in the name of Islam, the suicide bombing, the killing of women and children, the death of hundreds of thousands of innocents, women, children, people going by their business in marketplaces, being killed, being murdered in the name of Islam, because some person had an idea they borrowed from the Tamil Tigers. And then they thought, this looks like a good military tactic, let me find something to justify it. But we had nothing like this in our history before. This is how you come. This is how you change the deen. This is how we become divided. And when we all know the verse where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said, فَتَصِّمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا. We all know, فَتَصِّمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ جَمِيعًا. This is the verse that is quoted again and again and again to remind us that we need to be united. فَتَصِّمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ. Hold on together to the rope of Allah, bihablillah, jami'an, all together, وَلَا تَفَرَّقُوا, and don't be divided. We all have heard this verse quoted and quoted. But let's ask a question. What is hablillah? What is the rope of Allah? Because Allah tells us to hang on to something, a specific thing. And the thing that Allah tells us to hang on to is the rope of Allah. The rope of Allah. So if there is a rope, and this is Allah's rope, we have been told, all of us, to hang on to that. Now let me ask you a question. If this rope is Allah's rope, and we're hanging on to it, and someone lets go of Allah's rope to hang on to another rope, and imagine all the people hanging on to Allah's rope, they leave Allah's rope to hang on to another rope. Let me ask you a question. What are you going to do? Are you going to leave Allah's rope and go and hang with them on some other rope? Or are you going to keep on hanging to the rope of Allah, even if you're the only one? Yes? Yes, because Allah said, فَتَصِّمُوا بِحَبْلِ اللَّهِ. Hang on to the rope of Allah. And what is this rope of Allah? What is the rope of Allah? This has been explained by the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam in a hadith, an authentic hadith. The rope of Allah is Allah's book. The rope of Allah is Allah's book, which is suspended between the heavens and the earth. The rope of Allah is the Quran. It is the book of Allah. And it also, by extension, is the Sunnah. Because the Prophet also said, and this is the holistic approach, when you understand the deen all together. You see, there are people who say, we only believe in the Quran and we don't believe in the Sunnah. And they will use something like this as a proof. No, it's not a proof. Because the Prophet ﷺ said, the book of Allah and my Sunnah, they are together. And they will not separate until they meet me at the hawd, at the pond in paradise. The Quran and the Sunnah in coming to when we want to understand the deen of Islam, when we want to understand our deen, the book of Allah and the Sunnah come together. We don't separate between them in understanding our deen. Of course the Quran is the speech of Allah. But in understanding, in the fiqh of the deen, in knowing how to worship Allah and following the religion, the Quran and the Sunnah come together. That's why the Prophet ﷺ said, I leave you two things, as long as you hang on to them, you will never go astray. The book of Allah and my Sunnah. In another narration, when the Prophet ﷺ, he gave a khutbah, a sermon, and the people began to cry, and they began to shed tears. And one man, he stood up, he said, Ya Rasulullah, it seems as if this is a farewell sermon, so advise us. And the Prophet ﷺ said, I advise you to fear Allah, to have taqwa of Allah, and to hear and obey your Amir, even if he is an Abyssinian slave. And after me, he said, sallallahu alayhi wasallam, you will see great ikhtilaf, great differing. So cling to the book of Allah and my Sunnah and the Sunnah of the Khulafa ar-Rashideen, the rightly guided successors, and bite it with your teeth, and beware of the bid'ah, beware of the new things in the religion. Because the new things in the religion, this is what destroys the Sunnah. This is what destroys Islam. This is what perverts our deen. When people invent new things in the religion, they invent new ways. They change the deen. They are letting go of the rope of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They are abandoning the guidance of Allah for the feeble imaginings of their own minds. So this is what Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam warned us about. Have taqwa of Allah. Obey your Amir. Beware. There will be many differences. And we see so many differences. Don't we see so many differences? Don't we see what the Prophet sallallahu alayhi wasallam said? The Jews and Christians divided into 72 sects. And my ummah will divide into 73 sects. All of them in the hellfire except one. What is that one, Ya Rasulullah? The Sahaba wanted to know, who is saved from the hellfire, from those sects and those groups that went astray? And the Prophet ﷺ said, that those who are what I and my companions are upon this day. The ones who follow my Sunnah, and the Sunnah of my companions, what we're upon this day, the day before the people became divided. This is the deen, this is Islam. This is what the aql tells us, and this is what the naql tells us. This is what the text tells us, and this is what the intellect tells us. Both of them agree. Because if you were to ask anyone, even a non-Muslim, ask anyone, who do you think understood the religion of Islam the best? People living today, 1,430 years later, or the people who lived with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, the people who saw the revelation, they saw the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam sweating when the revelation came to him. They saw the camel, when the Prophet was sitting on the camel, it sagged from the weight when the Quran was being revealed. The people who saw the Prophet pray, they saw him make hajj, they saw him fasting, they heard him reciting the Quran, they heard from their own ears his explanation of the verses of the Quran, they saw him living the book of Allah, and he sallallahu alayhi wasallam was the living the Quran, the living example of how to follow the Quran. So who understood? Who do you think logically will understand that message better? The people living with the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, or the people who came hundreds of thousands of years, or hundreds or many hundreds of years after? Surely those people, and this is what the Prophet said. So unity, brothers and sisters, must be upon the truth. The truth is the Quran. The truth is that which explains the Quran and the Sunnah. And those people who best understood the Quran and the Sunnah were the companions of the Prophet. That is the people we must look to. How did they worship Allah? How did they believe in Allah? How did they unite? And what did they unite upon? How did they love each other, my brothers and sisters? And this is a topic I could talk so long about, this topic of unity. I talked about it conceptually. The concept of unity is upon the book and